This is what I've been learning from Neil's book about recruiting great people. So we've looked at how we find them, but then how do we actually support them to take up their role within the organisation. So he has some great questions about thinking about when the best time is to collect information. How do you remove the barriers? For example, for us it'd be when calls happen and when we do workshops. Being really, really clear that what candidates want is simplicity and speed and not have to duplicate information. So making sure in the way that we're designing this and rethinking it, we do that. Asking ourselves, how can we be as responsive and accessible as possible? How can we involve wellbeing workers in sharing what it's like to be a wellbeing worker, as well as having a role throughout the whole of the process here? And the other big question is, how do we measure how well we're doing so that we can track our progress and keep improving? And on one of the pages, I think it's 47, Neil's got some great examples of doing that. And of course, our big question is, how do we demonstrate our values throughout the process? So Neil suggests that you put together a sort of flow of how it works, and this is what we're using for wellbeing teams. So we're starting off with the different ways of connecting with people that we've spoken about. And if they're interested, we ask people to get in touch by phone. So we don't ask people at that stage to fill in application forms. In our thinking about what information to collect when, we don't collect that kind of information until the recruitment pack. We want to start with a conversation, because for us that reflects our values of being curious about people and wanting to learn about them as individuals, and starting with a conversation, not paperwork. So the next thing that happens is a conversation on the phone. Again, Neil's got some great killer questions that really, really need to be asked either there, well, for us, I think there, and the most important one being around motivation and what motivates people to come into care and how that is directly related to outcomes. So we have a conversation on the phone, and then two things need to happen next. We're sending people their recruitment pack. What Neil's introduced us to is the possibility of using psychometric questionnaires. And we're really excited to be working with Neil and his colleagues to put together one specifically for wellbeing teams, which reflects these values and make sure that we're finding people who can deliver compassionate care and who are interested in self-management as well as being able to demonstrate the other values. So they will happen there. We ask people to confirm their attendance by a particular day. And I know that Neil's suggesting that you have prompts and text to people to remind them to come. But because one of our values is responsibility, we want people to take the responsibility for doing that. But we might think about other ideas where we can stay connected to people throughout the process. Because we're largely recruiting to teams, we're using a workshop approach rather than interviews. But as the teams grow, and as wellbeing teams are responsible for recruiting their further colleagues, it's unlikely that they'll do that through a workshop. There'll be lots of other ways of exploring that. And then after the workshop, and for us that's the next day, we'll be making a conditional offer to people, welcoming people and making sure they know what to expect and what happens next. And of course the formalities of DBS and reference, and then to the induction. So that's the process that we've taken from Neil's book and what he's suggesting. And what we want to do next is really dig deeper into our values and making sure they're absolutely showing up throughout the whole of the process.